So yeah, social media trends, why they're important and why they're not. First of all, I'm going to talk to you about a load of social media trends that I've seen over the last sort of 12 months and what's happening with those, and maybe some ways as brands that we can kind of take advantage of them. And then I'm going to tell you why that lot is all pointless, that I've spent the last 20 minutes of my time wasting my breath telling you about social trends and what you should all really be focusing on. So, the first trend is about moments. So, one of the things that's happened, we all know that social media is in the moment, but tools like Periscope even are there to really bring those moments to life. So actually we're having to really think about our real-time marketing now. How are we going to use these video streaming tools? And you've also got things like Instagram and Snapchat that are delivering this kind of in-the-moment kind of way of going to market. So what could happen from this particular trend is we can't schedule any more content because we've got to start thinking all about it in real time and really thinking about how we can engage with our audience over real time. The next one is buy buttons. You know, when Facebook first came along, everybody tried to shove an e-commerce store as an app into the platform to try and make everybody buy their products off Facebook. That kind of died, and now some of these platforms, Facebook, Pinterest, are just two of the platforms that have brought in buy buttons. And there's fashion brands such as Burberry and Ralph Lauren who are using their runway videos, and they're making those shoppable. So as you're seeing models walk down the catwalk in the video, you're able to click on those items and go and shop for them. Another really interesting one for me, and I'm sorry, I'm going to zip through these as quickly as I can because I'm conscious of time a little bit, is messenger apps. So out of the top 10 social media networks, messenger apps are now 4 of them. So WeChat, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger and Skype are now all in the top 4 platforms. Zuckerberg owns 2 of those and half the internet, but you know, he's doing pretty well for himself. I think what we have to take on board as a brand is that people are having more personal conversations now. And are looking for more personal ways to communicate with each other rather than this kind of broadcast that we see quite a lot of the time. There's some a good case study around how the BBC have been using WhatsApp to reach out to slightly more underdeveloped countries, and they're literally sending in any way possible the mobile phone number of the WhatsApp profile and creating a group so they can broadcast information out to their audiences. And they've literally got a journalist on a mobile phone burning thumb muscles trying to report on as much information as they can and get it out. In-app functionality. So, you know, I don't know if you guys actually use Facebook Messenger. Will you have noticed I'm not checking for like emails at the moment, I promise. So Facebook Messenger, for instance, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, so this is a message from a friend, I won't read it out to you, God knows what it says. Those 3 little dots there, so those 3 little dots there on your Facebook Messenger app have got lots of new publishing brands who are trying to create ways to be part of those personal conversations. So I don't know if you guys have heard of Giphy. Giphy is a place you can go and search for animated GIFs. Giphy have built a little app into Facebook Messenger so you can search for those GIFs within the app and send them straight to your friends. There's other things that are going on as well. So Facebook have introduced instant articles where you can read the whole article within the Facebook environment, and they're trying to basically, you know, stop people leaving their platforms. And that kind of comes onto publishing quite nicely. You know, so Facebook do have their instant articles. Instagram have just created a music channel where they'll be exploring music from around the globe, curating it all and bringing it out into one channel. Twitter are engaging with publishing brands to bring together Twitter moments out in the US at the moment. Hopefully come over here pretty soon. Snapchat have done a very similar thing where they're partnering with brands such as Vice to bring out stories through their platform, so you can follow these publications within the channels. Reach is another one. Reach is a bloody nightmare these days on social media unless you're paying for it. Okay, so your organic reach, all those algorithms that Facebook is stopping brands reaching their audience organically, and the only way we can tackle that as a brand is by using paid media. That's one way anyway. The other way to look at it, and again I see this quite a lot, is influencer outreach. So influencer outreach is great because you can reach more of an audience through one individual, and they're more trusted than the brand. So if it's coming from an influencer, you can begin to get more trust. It's a bit harder to manage than just putting a couple of grand into a campaign to try and get some paid media, but you do get more trust. Sponsored content, a little bit hard to read kind of deliberately. Sponsored content, while it's been around for a long time in an advertorial format, we're seeing that now come through into these publishing platforms. So BuzzFeed, for instance, will do sponsored blogs. Whether you can actually understand it's a sponsored blog by the tiny little thing on the left-hand side saying it's a sponsored blog is another matter. And that is one thing that is changing. You know, that advertising standards are trying to make sure that if you are an influencer or a vlogger, you are having to be a little bit more transparent. Sorry about the bad pun on the image. Social good. So we all know of the tragedy that happened a few days ago in Paris, and what Facebook decided to do was put a safety check in place. So typically, Facebook were only doing this for human disasters, but now, for natural disasters such as earthquakes, but now they're doing it for human disasters as well. So what you're seeing is these platforms actually trying to help wherever they can. Airbnb actually reached out to all of its Airbnb users in Paris to see if they could offer space in their houses for those that were stranded at the time. And that's the platforms. Then you've got the brands. So Nike, for instance, Nike, in terms of social good, they're trying to make everyone better and everyone fitter. The Find Your Greatness campaign that they're working with at the moment, sorry about my husky voice as well, where there's a slightly overweight kid running along the road trying to get fitter. And Nike believe that everybody can be an athlete if they try, and they're trying to build that into their campaigns. China's another one. So China currently contributes the greatest percentage of global GDP, and their social networks, as I said, WeChat is effectively a Chinese social media platform, is huge at the moment, but very internally focused. So the things you're going to see is these Chinese platforms becoming more global. And one of the other things, I've been lucky to work with some organisations that are helping British brands go to market in China through social media networks to test the water, to see if it's even worth them working out there at the moment. So China's going to be another one to watch out for, if it isn't already. Anyone remember Elo from last year? 1, yeah, 2, 3, yeah. It kind of came and went before we even knew about it, and it was supposed to be the Facebook killer. But what we're seeing a lot now is these smaller platforms. There's less of them coming to market because it's becoming harder to get to market. And what's happening is these social media platforms that are successful are getting bought by the big guys. And at the same time, the big guys are then fragmenting themselves. So you look at Facebook. Facebook's got about 5 or 6 different apps you can use these days. Facebook Messenger, Facebook Groups, Facebook for Work, Facebook Pages. So they're fragmenting themselves to try and become more relevant to what it is people are trying to do and create deeper experiences in those applications. I'm going to skip that one because I just know I'm going to run out of time. GIFs of just whatever happened to 2015, GIFs became the thing to go and do. He doesn't seem that happy about it, but I'm ecstatic. I love GIFs. I think they're wicked. They make me laugh. They're very, very kind of little snackable, catchy pieces of content that succinctly get the point across, probably better than I'm doing at the moment. So long may they continue into 2016, and if you want to Google another stupid marketing jargon terminology, check out gifographics. So it's a kind of infographic, but it's a GIF. But again, it's a cool way of executing content. The next one's dark social. So dark social media it's estimated that 60% of Social shares are dark, which effectively means that it's very, very hard to measure these shares and what's being shared. So typically they're being sent in things like email, instant messenger, text, and it's difficult for us as brands to be able to measure this stuff. There are ways around it. BuzzFeed have created a kind of WhatsApp share via their app so that they can begin to measure that. Other organisations are making sure that they've got using URL shorteners and things like that and being able to at least track the clicks that are happening. Facebook, probably until about 12-18 months ago, when you were doing social media listening using social media listening tools in Facebook, typically you're only getting to 5% of the information. You were able to get to the person that said that thing, but now Facebook have kind of gone into partnership with DataSift, and DataSift have opened the platform up so we can get to probably about 80% of that, but it's anonymized data. So there are things happening to try and make the dark social a little bit more understandable. So what I thought I'd then do is just put all this lot on a adoption curve, just so you can maybe feel like where we are, and this is all my own personal opinion. There's no numbers behind it except the things that I see and do. So things like the early guys are getting into China and working out how to use these Chinese platforms to enter into the market, particularly from the UK. Buy buttons, definitely seeing some early adoption of those at the moment. In-app functionality and sponsored content, are sitting in that majority now. A lot of people are doing that kind of stuff. And reach is in the late majority. If you're not using paid media as part of your social media programs, you're kind of a bit behind at the moment. So you need to think about that. So what I thought I'd then do is just identify some of the opportunities. So for China, understand the Chinese platforms, and if your brand can flourish in that market. Publishers, keep an eye out for opportunities to leverage the publishing functionality in these channels as it comes along. Messaging apps, test methods to become part of more personal conversations and provide value. Dark social, you, as WhatsApp have done, who are creating sharing via iOS and using URL shorteners, make sure you're doing that. Buy buttons, if you've got something to sell online, you use a buy button, it's pretty useful. In the moment, understand the real-time opportunities and embrace the in-the-moment apps. Anyone use Periscope or Meerkat or anything like that here? No, okay, go and have a look at them, they're good fun. Fragmentation, so try out these new apps, these new social platforms that come along, but don't expect too much of them. In-app functionality, look at what's available and how other brands are using these tools to take part of the conversations. Go and just take a look at that Facebook Messenger. It's quite cool, some of the apps that are in there. Social good and is all about standing for something good as brands, as organisations. It's about empowering your audiences, and rather than just thinking about the short-term campaign to get the short-term reward from. We need to all start thinking a little bit more long-term. Reach, you're going to have to pay for it. It's as simple as that. It's just going to get worse. And smaller platforms, find time to play with them, but don't expect much. So that's all the trends. And social trends are important because if you can kind of adopt them early on, you've got new channels that may provide revenue and new methods of engaging audiences. It should give you a competitive advantage. But it's all well and good saying that and checking out these new trends and doing that kind of stuff, but the one thing you need to never forget is your audience and who they are. So, while it's important to stay on top of social trends, it's more important to stay on top of your audience and what their needs are. And for me, this is about being braver in what we're doing. There is no more there is no longer a competitive advantage for doing social media. We really need to be thinking about what we're doing. And what I'd hope you get from the next bit of this presentation is that there's a need to be braver within your organisations and pushing the boat. There's more than one way of being brave. Brave isn't, what we typically, what you may typically think it is. That you need to change your mindset from messages to actions. Like, how can we get people to do stuff? And just to say that the following doesn't really just apply to social media, this bit. It applies to all marketing. It applies to your lives. Just generally think about how you can take these principles into what you're doing. So Google talk a lot about behaviour eats process for breakfast. And you know, I think typically in our marketing worlds, one of the things that we end up doing a lot is just taking whatever in our inbox and passing it to our outbox without really thinking about it or questioning it. And I'm sorry if that's a damning statement, but you know, that's the way life is. Everything's really, really fast. We don't spend enough time questioning the things that are going on in front of us enough to see if there's a better way of doing things. So I want everybody, if it's okay, to just stand up for a moment, if possible. That would be brilliant. And we're all going to be a little bit brave together. You're going to need to put your phones down. I need you to face the person, if you two ladies, because I think you're the only ladies that face each other, you'll need to go round and face that lady just there. No, no, no. So if you face this gentleman, and what I need you to do is just face each other, the person next to you. Okay, now you may or may not know them. So you need to turn around and actually face them. Actually face them. That's it. Have we got a fifth person? Would you like to come to me and we will demonstrate? Okay, brilliant. Right. So, okay. So the first thing I'd like you to do is pay each other a compliment. Okay, simple as just. I like your earrings. They're really nice.
Thank you.
You like?
Interesting decor in here.
Thank you very much. Okay. Right. Everybody done that? Brilliant. Right. Okay. The next thing I'd all like you to do is I'd like you to stretch your arms out as far as you can in front of each other. Okay, make sure you're reasonably close to each other while we're doing this. Give your fingers a little wiggle. Brilliant, thank you very much. Right now, everybody needs to lean left, so you should end up like that. And now I just want you to go in for a hug, and that's it. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Right, we can all sit down. Okay, so we're all a bit happier. There's a few more smiles on our face, and hopefully we're thinking a bit differently already. I hope no hands wandered. Okay, so just going back to this, okay, so one of the problems we have, so in the B2B world, I don't know how many of you guys are in the B2B space, but in the B2B world, typically B2B buyers will do 12 searches through Google, okay, and out of those 12 searches, 2 will have a brand mention. So there's a thing in Google called ZMOT, Zero Moment of Truth, which basically means, for those that you don't know, is the first time you type something into a Google search engine, it's your first, or it's actually your zero moment of intent. The first time that you intend to do something with that brand or find out about something. So as a brand, if there's only 2 searches being done across a buyer's problem and you're not in there, there's no brand recall. So one of our jobs as marketers is we've got to be better at doing brand recall. And again, I think that's another thing I think we have to change in the B2B world. In the B2B world, we worry so much about leads, we forget that actually, we might need to tell them who we are and why it's worth engaging with us as a business. There's another thing going on in the world as well. So I don't know if you know this guy, Moore's Law, invented Moore's Law, which said the number of transistors per square inch on an integrated circuit have doubled every year since it was invented. Okay, so basically the whole world's getting smaller and faster, and that's what keeps happening everywhere. Everything's so bloody fast now that we don't have time to think about what we're doing. And there's other predictions around the technology singularity will occur in the year 2045, which is basically when computers become faster than us. And we can't comprehend how computers are then operating and all that kind of stuff. It's all weird, fast, really scary stuff. So I've talked a little bit about opposing thoughts and the fact we need to have them, and we need to think differently, and we need to question. So if the whole world's getting faster, I've got 3 opposing different points of view to give you. So the first one's Mahatma Gandhi, and he said there's more to life than simply increasing its speed. I'd kind of agree with that guy. There's another gentleman called Milan Kundera who wrote a book on slowness, and it says the degree of speed is directly proportional to the intensity of forgetting. So the faster things happen, the more we forget them. And the most influential one that I have that's really affected me is a quote that went, "Technology, what's the rush?" Which actually came from my wife when I was pre-ordering my Apple Watch. So, you know, obviously more influence than most. So those are some opposing thoughts to what's going on in the world of speed at the moment. I have a little task for you all, if you've got a pen and paper in your hand, or you can get to one quickly. What you can see here in front of you is a glass hammer. A glass hammer is probably the most stupid product in the world, because as soon as you hit a nail on the head with that thing, it's going to shatter into 1,000 pieces. What I want you to do is think about why that might be a good product. So I'll give you an example. what I want you to do is write down as many ideas as you can in 60 seconds, and if you can hand them to Laura, who's one of my colleagues, once you've done them, it's all going to be a bit of a mad rush, and Laura will work out who the winner is. So, as an example of why this product might be a good product, maybe it's used to cobble Cinderella's glass slipper. Okay, so you need to think of lots of ideas about why a glass hammer is a good thing. Okay, 60 seconds starting now. In fact, I think I'll ask Laura to get up rather than everybody come to you. That might be a better idea. That's 20 seconds. That's 10 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Laura's going to run around and pick them up while I carry on talking. So, so we've talked a bit about opposing thoughts. Now I want to talk a little bit about disruption. Disruption's another one of those wonderful words that we've decided that we're all going to start adopting and using. And typically what happens in the marketplace is the incumbent in the market leader will be making incremental changes to their products over time. But what happens is over time is that the performance the actual customer can use versus the innovation, they just can't use what's in front of them anymore. So we keep making changes to thinking we're making it better, and customers aren't using it. There was a study done a few years ago that showed that 80% of 80% of software is never used. So we, as businesses, we've spent 80% of our time developing software and the functionality is not even being used in it. And while we're all worried about these tiny little incremental innovations, someone comes in and smashes it. So like hotels and Airbnb, I don't like using these examples, they're what's in front of me unfortunately, or Uber and taxis. It's all happening. They make a massive disruption in the market and they get massive market share because they've thought about something slightly differently. Now, those are all products and companies making disruption, not marketing messages or social media campaigns. So, but there are ways we can bring this in. So, I'm going to give you an example of a server. A server is a pretty dry product, right? You're probably talking to a CIO about this wonderful looking server. And you might, if you're lucky, spend a bit of time testing the color of a couple of buttons, sitting on a social post or changing the background color or whatever it might be. But you're not really thinking about who the guy is that you're going to be selling this product to, or girl for that matter, or their sexual preferences, or what they care about, or what they do when they're down the pub having a few beers, and the fact that there's no bloke in the world or female in the world going, wow, that is one beautiful looking server. So we need to think a bit differently, and there's a good chance that our CIO, our Mr. CIO, is probably getting a raft of images just like this in their social media streams and their emails and looking on websites and all that kind of stuff. So what we have to do as marketers, I'm going to be a bit crass now, I admit, is actually do something different and put something in front of them that's going to make them think slightly differently. So, you know, rather than view now, why not reveal all? You know, we always talk about selling the sizzle in marketing, so let's just set it on fire. It's a little bit ridiculous, I know, but I'm just trying to get the point across about trying to think a little bit differently about how we're going to market and the ways that we can be a bit braver. There's a guy called Adam Ferrier who has written a book called The Ad Effect. I'd highly recommend you read it. He talks about thinking about how we change people's behaviours, and again, I've spoken a bit about behaviours at the start. It's our job to change our audience's behaviours for the benefit of the organisations that we work with. So how do you change a behaviour? Well, first you have to understand is what behaviour you're trying to change and how to change behaviours. So typically, changing behaviour revolves around two things: motivation to change and the ease of change. So motivation is all around individual incentives. What does it mean to me? What am I going to get out of it? And social norms. Are there other people around me making this change or doing this thing? Because we like, as humans, to shortcut thoughts or shortcut decisions by seeing what other people are doing. And then the other bit is ease. So how easy is it? Do I have the opportunity to change? Or do I have the ability to change? And typically what you'll find is if you're down here, it's very, very hard to change people. If it's up here, it's a hell of a lot easier. If they're down here, it's going to cost you a lot of money to make that change happen, and you're going to have to be very, very persuasive. But it's worth thinking about some of these things, about how you're going to make these changes. So he goes on to talk about, I'm completely ripping his book apart, to be honest with you, but it was worth the read. He argues that while emotions are important when you're thinking about your marketing activity, actually when it comes to changing behaviour, actions change attitude quicker than attitude changes action. Now, what does that mean? The easiest way, the best example I can give you is I use an example of my wife. My wife, I come home quite late at night because I work in an agency and they work me to death. Laura will vouch for that. And I'll get home and my wife might be watching The X Factor or Downton Abbey or something that I have no pleasure in watching whatsoever. But because I sit down with her, because I do need to spend some time with my wife, otherwise I'm going to get shot, and I start watching this, I actually begin to kind of start liking it. And I'm like, why am I liking this? I don't like this. And what it is there's something called cognitive dissonance. And as human beings, we don't like our thoughts, feelings, and actions to be misaligned. And if they are, we readjust them. So me sitting down in front of the TV watching something I don't like, I start liking because my body doesn't like, my brain just doesn't like being misaligned. And then the flip side of that is quite often when we talk about trying to, use attitude rather than action. So quite often my wife will tell me to eat healthily, and you can clearly see by the state of me that I don't eat healthily. If she just put the food in front of me, there's a good chance that I will just eat it, accept it, and carry on and begin to like eating, rabbit food because that's good for me. But I don't. So this is why actions, doing something, means I can change an attitude quicker than the other way around. And one of the things, so the reason I've put this up is this think, feel, do thing. So quite often as marketers, and when I've gone into pitch ideas to clients and all that kind of stuff, I'll say I want our audience to think this, or I want them to feel that, and we want them to do this. And actually, I think if we start thinking about what do we want them to do from the outset, then the think and feel bit will come along anyway, because there will have been an action with you as a brand, and they will have built brand preference, and you can make things happen quicker. He then goes on to discuss these things called action spurs, and there's loads of them, but the two that I'm picking out is because two I've used in the past with a campaign that I've run. So utility is about being useful. Do useful marketing. Don't just do messages. Do something that's actually going to work and be useful for your audience. And then the other side is collectivism, and collectivism plays to the social norms. So try and do something that can be someone else can be shown to be doing. And what we did was we created something called the Great Marketing Measure for Adobe. What it did was you would go in and you would be psychometrically tested to see how creative or analytical you are as a marketing person. And you learn about yourself. And then once you'd learned about yourself and the archetype you were, we then created little mini tools to improve your analytical and creative thinking. So that's the utility piece, really useful for an audience. The collectivism piece was we used social. It was all social sign-in. As soon as you got your archetype, you could share it. You could then compare your peers and colleagues to see what kind of archetype you were. And then as you went through and did these tools, you shared them. Once you completed them, you shared the fact that you completed it with your audience. So we showed there were social norms and people using this stuff. We got 2,000 people through it in the first couple of weeks, and we didn't use any paid media. We went out to one community, and we were only hoping for 100 in the first 2 weeks to test it. And we ended up just going live with it. So, So back to emotion, because emotion is important. There's a psychoanalyst, Donald Winnicott, discovered that our first emotional action in life is to respond to our mother's smile with a smile. So joy and happiness are hardwired into all of us. It's just something we do. So emotions are really important, and joy and happiness are the two big emotions to get your content shared that little bit more. There's a company called Unruly who can actually predict how shareable your video content is, dependent on your psychological, yes, I'll use that word, psychological responses. So what they do is they kind of test it with a focus group, work out what the market norms are, understand how the audience have reacted to that particular video, and then can plot it using algorithms against a share rank. Now there's two here. There's the Pepsi test drive. I've been doing that all week. And basically they get a stunt driver into a car showroom to Ford Mustang, get a stunt driver in, the sales guy sitting next to him thinking he's just taking him for a jolly little ride. The stunt driver, you know, screeches out of the forecourt, does a few donuts, speeds off, comes back, does a jump on a ramp and handbrakes turns, all while the kind of guy's going, oh my God, what the hell are you doing? And yeah, so it's good, it's funny, it's fun. The next one here is the 3-horse pony, so the Shetland pony that was kind of moonwalking and doing all that kind of stuff. Now, when they did this, they basically plot it in some kind of 80% bounds. They got the Pepsi test drive absolutely perfect in terms of how shareable they thought that piece of content would be. The 3-horse pony way outperformed anything they could have expected. Now, anybody got any thoughts why that might have been? And you need to think about horses and the time that advert went out. Yeah, go on, Dale. Findus, yeah, the horse meat scandal. So everyone was more emotionally attached to horses without even knowing it, and it actually boosted the shareability of that video. And if you don't believe that emotions are good to use in marketing, then there was a case study done by the IPA that looked at 880 international case studies, probably over about a 20-year period. So it's gone through a couple of recessions and all that kind of stuff. And it's basically to say that emotional campaigns are twice as likely to generate large profits than rational ones. So think about some emotion. Final thing, I think I'm almost finished and I'm running a bit over. Content's got different roles in social media, okay? If you want to get people engaged, you need to think about things like brand banter, social fodder, and passion points, okay? If you want to think about business objectives, then you need to think about showcasing expertise, social as a service, you know, business-led product messages. The two cannot live without each other, because if you don't have an engaged audience, you can't tell them about your business product or solution. If you just tell people about your business product solution, they're never going to be engaged and they'll just switch off.